Hey, what is up, nation? In this session, we're going to talk about what an architect does. I feel like I shouldn't have to make this video, but unfortunately I do. There's an architecture association that I'm a part of called the AIA, the American Institute of Architects, that I feel like this is really their job, but I don't feel like maybe they're not doing a good enough job at what they're doing, because a lot of people don't really understand what an architect does. And I think the general public thinks that architects are actually engineers, or that they're the same thing, and they're not. And I just want to really briefly touch on what an architect does, what their role is, and if you want to be one, what that looks like. All right, so first I'm going to say I think there's a few different kinds of architects. I'm going to pick three, and architects can be sort of anywhere within that realm, and obviously there's more, but I think primarily there are three. There's design architects, which I would consider myself. There are technical architects who are really good at understanding how things go together, like building details, all the systems that go into a building, and the technical aspects of a building. And then business architects, people who are really good at understanding how a business is operated, but may not be that well tuned when it comes to designing or the technical aspects. So if you're thinking about hiring an architect, or you want to become an architect, just keep that in your mind, that there's not just one track that you have to be. So the primary role of an architect is what I would call a conductor of buildings. I think when I think of music and you think of a conductor, the conductor knows what all of the instruments should be playing, but may not know how to play every single instrument in the symphony, or whatever, the band, or whatever it is. And that's really what an architect does. They focus on how they can assemble all these instruments together to make something that really makes a lot of sense. Now, an architect, I would say, is a jack of all trades in a lot of ways. It's important for an architect to know a lot about the HVAC, the plumbing, the electrical, the details, like how the assemblies, carpentry, tile work, basically all of the trades. Literally, jack of all trades is the architect's job, on top of understanding code, understanding how a project is going through, coordinating with a client, making sure that they understand the process and what is happening, and serves as a middleman between the client and the contractor, to sort of like break things down so that everybody is on the same page. So there's parts of engineering that an architect does, but the architect doesn't necessarily do the structural engineering for the building. Architects are able to do that, but I would say that most architects, unless they're more towards that technical side that I was talking about, don't do that because it's a liability. They'll hire someone else, and they do that with pretty much everything that they do. They hire sub-consultants that then advise them of what they should do. And so a structural engineer, a civil engineer, mechanical engineer, those type of engineers, an architect will hire to be a part of their team, and then the architect becomes the conductor, making sure that all of those parts of the team make sense. So it's the architect's job to understand everything that is going into a building and make it work, essentially, and make it beautiful. That's really, I think, what the architect does. It's the architect's job to make sure that all of these things coming together make sense for what the client wants in terms of an aesthetic appearance. And then when construction starts, to make sure that the contractor, whoever's building the project, is adhering to what the architect has drawn. The design intent is what it's called. So the drawings communicate the design intent to the contractor, and then the contractor is supposed to build to that design intent. But lots of things get missed in drawings, or maybe can get overlooked, is maybe a better way to put it. And it's the architect's job to be on site, to be able to point out different things that maybe the architect is looking at. I mean, how many times have you read a book, a whole page of, or let's say a whole chapter of a book, and you don't remember all the details? It's essentially what happens when a contractor takes on a job. It's their job to understand all of that stuff, but sometimes things get missed. So the architect is there to say, hey, this is really important. We need to make sure this gets hit. So, or this certain requirement gets met. So that's really, I think, the best way to describe what an architect does is A, do the design, make sure that everything makes sense from a functional and programmatic point of view, and then 2, coordinate all of the sub-consultants that are putting their stuff inside the building, all of the things that make the building work, make sure that can be incorporated and doesn't detract from the beauty of the architecture, and really make sure that it works. So hopefully this helped shed some light on what an architect does for you. If you like this video, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends. And as always, happy hacking.
All right, designers, just because this episode of Designer Hacks is over doesn't mean we're leaving you out in the cold. Tony's got tons of great content available at designerhacks.com. So join Design Nation right now, and we'll see you on the next episode of Designer Hacks.